Derek Bateman there. Well, I'm joined now by Labour's Ken Macintosh, who's tipped to be one of the party's leadership contenders, by the SNP's parliamentary business convener, Derek Mackay, and by the Herald's political commentator, Iain Macwhirter. Thank you all very much indeed for coming in. Ken Macintosh, first of all, would you like to declare on the programme this evening?
Not just yet, yes. We're still undergoing the party review, and to be honest, getting to the bottom of why we had such a poor result in May is actually the most important. And right. Iain, if I may say so, Iain is doing a very, very good job at the moment.
And when you say just yet, so it's just a matter of time, is it?
Well, I'll declare when it's time to make a declaration.
So you will declare?
I'll make a declaration when the time... I think we're presumptuous otherwise.
And, oh right, so we can take that as read, that, I think, everyone. If you feel like firming it up before the end of the programme, just get back to me. Iain, when you're listening to what Michael Moore has been saying, what Danny Alexander, we understand, is saying this evening to the CBI, do you think that they're managing to put out there some coherent vision of the union for the next 100 years?
It sounds very tired stuff. I think if that's the best they can do, then, you know, will the last person to leave the union please turn out the light? This stuff about banks, this stuff about the financial rescue has largely been discredited even by the Financial Times. I don't think anyone believes that Scotland would not be able to continue economically were it to be independent. There is, of course, a great doubt about exactly what the SNP mean by independence, but I don't think this is the way to combat it.
But Iain, let's before we move into the specifics of the particular policies and where they will go, let's look at what you've highlighted there, that the contentions that are being put forward now are the ones we heard from Gordon Brown 15 years ago, and they have been discredited on so many fronts, on so many key points. What does it tell us about the nature of the debate that we're going to be going into if there is that fundamental issue there that some voters may find very disrespectful?
Well, we find ourselves in a very difficult situation here because, I mean, the unionist case is going completely by default. I mean, the three unionist parties are currently leaderless, and they show no obvious signs of finding any leadership. And Labour, which is the most successful democratic party in Scottish history, is left in this appalling dilemma where no one appears to want to lead it. Now, they say they're having a breathing space. It's fine for them to do this because they've got to sort themselves out. But it looks much more like Labour's breathing its last to me. And they should be fighting there. They should be struggling. They should be stamping on each other's shoulders to try to get to lead this party. But the evidence, as far as we know, is that there's virtually nothing happening at all. And this review, I've spoken to people who have submitted material to this review, the Labour Party review, and how it's going to elect its future leader. And I can tell you, they're pretty disappointed with its effectiveness so far.
Well, Macintosh, let's look at that. Whatever your politics, this should be a very dynamic, exciting time where in Scotland you can say, who are we, what do we want, where do we want to go? All these big choices, all these big debates, all this discussion, but there doesn't seem to be any dynamism or energy about this debate. Why not? And why is Labour so completely flat in all of this?
Well, Labour are not flat in any of this. First of all, the argument that Iain's talking about, that you're talking about, is one for separatism. I'd just like to correct something to begin with. I'm not a unionist, I'm a devolutionist. I believe that devolution has been incredibly successful. I believe in home rule for Scotland. I believe that we can take control of our own affairs, and that's exactly what we're doing now. We have shown that the Scottish Parliament is hugely successful in giving Scotland confidence to take control of our health. But you know, to keep talking about constitutional issues and to separate us off from the rest of the UK doesn't improve our health, doesn't improve our equality, it doesn't make this a fairer country. It might make us more separate, but it doesn't make us a better or happier place.
If you think you have a positive message to sell, why has no one articulated this message? And can you afford to be as relaxed as you seem to be, almost bordering on indifferent as you seem to be, about what actually happens here?
Well, we're certainly not indifferent, and we're not, nor are we relaxed. At the moment, we're undergoing a major review about the worst result we've had in a long, long time in Scotland. And we have to make sure that people remember Labour's values. I want to try and rekindle the spirit of '99, that enthusiasm about the birth of the Scottish Parliament.
Do you not think everything has moved on very fundamentally since then?
Well, I don't think Labour's values have moved on, and I don't think the Scottish people, I mean, we've clearly lost the support and the affection of the Scottish people, but I don't actually think But that's over policy choices and over, I suppose, the business of government, as opposed to the values, which I believe we still have very much in common: social justice, fairness, trying to build a happier, healthier Scotland. I mean, not building a separate Scotland, but building a fairer Scotland, and that's what the Labour Party is about. But we have to re-engage. I mean, you know, that's not an easy task, and it certainly will take time. But can I say, it's far more important than talking about constitutional issues, which I think the majority of people are absolutely left cold by.
Well, Derek Mackay, other than that, it is by constitutional issues that you reach the points that the various parties want to reach, and they're very different, you know, points on this journey. But what I'd say to you tonight, the CBI are saying, oh, in Scotland, the CBI are saying, look, you know, whether it's independence or not, just get on with the referendum, because all this is bad for business. It creates uncertainty, all this hanging around, not knowing what the question will be, when it will come, what it will involve, and that hiatus is doing the economy damage.
Well, quite on the contrary. What the SNP want to do is build up confidence in Scotland, and we'll do that by governing competently, as the SNP government has done, and encouraging a very positive debate about what Scotland could be. It could be a healthier, fairer, welfare and greener nation with the powers that independence would bring, and we'll build up that case and that vision over the next years to come. The only uncertainty and the only negativity that's coming as part of this debate is coming from the unionist parties that don't seem to have a single positive idea about what Scotland could do.
The counter-argument to that, of course, is that the point of not rocking the boat in the last Parliament was you needed to prove you could govern. You proved you could govern. Now you don't want to rock the boat in the next Parliament because you need to take things along very smoothly until you get to the referendum. So you are not going to make the hard choices that Scotland needs to have taken within this next parliamentary term for political reasons of your own.
No, the hard choices are unavoidable. There'll be a spending review, there'll be a programme for government and a legislative programme, there'll be day-to-day good governance, competent governance of Scotland, and also the debate about Scotland's future, in which we build up the confidence of this nation to be a positive and outward-looking nation which takes its place in the world with access to our own resources and all the powers that a normal nation would have.
Right, so just to clarify this point then, what does independence actually mean anymore?
Independence means that the people of Scotland would get the government they vote for, not a UK government that they didn't vote for, but a government that they did vote
Devo
for.
Max or Independence Light, or do we retain the army? Yeah.
Well, it would mean equality, it would mean normality, it means access to all revenues raised in Scotland, it means taking a place in the world, it means policy control over every area that any normal nation would have. Well, you know, over the next few years we'll build up a specific policy portfolio and what each area will look like. But, you know, it's really important to get the vision right and take people of Scotland with us, building on the immediate issues, which is the legislative programme, the Scotland Bill that the Parliament will have to consider, and also the ongoing dialogue with the people of Scotland. It can be a very positive one.
Let's just break off there for a moment, because as we were saying earlier, Danny Alexander, the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, has been speaking to the CBI in Glasgow, and we can now have a clip of some of the key points from his speech tonight.
The ties between Scotland and the rest of the UK are an essential cornerstone of our economic recovery. Scotland's road to recovery is intimately tied to the recovery of the rest of the UK, and we must work together, politicians and businesses, to capitalise on every opportunity to support recovery. We are stronger together, and we are stronger when Scotland's two governments work together, pulling in the same direction for the people of this country.
Danny Alexander there. Iain, just to pick up on some of the points we were raising there, do you think that both sides now have to have a greater clarity to put before the electorate, and sooner rather than later, if we are to have the kind of debate we're entitled to have in Scotland? Because do you think there is confusion about what independence actually means anymore?
Well, yeah, as I said earlier, the kind of unionist case, if you like, is going by default. I mean, there's this great question about the Common Report and the Scotland Bill, which is going through Westminster currently, which is going to be dominating the next 6 months or so. I don't have any indication that the non-leadership, if you like, of the unionist parties in Scotland has any idea what they want to do with that. And Ken, Macintosh there is saying it's not about the Constitution at all. Well, I'm sorry, it is about the Constitution. It's also about Labour's Constitution, because if Labour is going to get out of this mess, it has to establish itself as a Scottish party with its own Scottish leader, who is a leader in Scotland, and isn't just a sort of second in command of a branch plant. But look, I mean, the situation for the SNP, I mean, there are political opportunities here which will arise. The SNP didn't expect to win an absolute majority. Nobody expected them to win an absolute majority in the election. They don't have a script for this. They don't have a clear idea of what they want to do because, of course, in the past, they didn't have to really have one because what they could do was constrained by what the other parties would allow them to do. Now, they are their own masters. It's not at all clear what their agenda is going to be. And in that kind of situation, the danger is they can become the victim of events. Events, dear boy, events. And we could possibly see one of them this week in the trams fiasco, where John Swinney has had to pile in there and overturn the decision of Edinburgh Council and basically put his name on this trams project. Now that could be a disaster waiting to happen.
But Iain, also, whatever's waiting for them in the long grass with the economy, why would it be that if you have this majority now, nothing too major has happened so far, your opponents are on the back foot, it would seem, why not bring forward the referendum? Why wait for something, the events you're talking about, to come and bite you?
Well, because they'd lose it. As simple as that. They're not going to have a referendum anytime soon. They will leave it to the later in the Parliament. Hopefully, after the UK coalition has disintegrated and perhaps there's a Tory government after the 2015 general election, and against that backdrop, they might be able to get a majority in Scotland for independence. But they're certainly not going to do it when they lose it, and they'll leave it as late as possible.
And Iain, finally, in terms of public, really positive, constructive public engagement in this, I know I'm sounding girlishly enthusiastic about that concept, probably very naively, but how does this have to be structured, do you think, in the future? I mean, what's it going to take to have a realistic debate about this in which the issues are adequately addressed in a reasonable timescale?
Okay, if you're talking about the independence referendum, I mean, the problem is that the way things are going, the SNP might get through by default because the other parties don't appear to be wanting to get into the game at all. And they're coming out with these old, tired arguments, which really have been, as I say, discredited. They have to find some new arguments for the new reformed union. They don't appear to be interested in promoting that. Labour, as I say, is completely adrift and leaderless, and in a dreadful situation. I think this is a real national crisis we have here because, there's got to be an opposition as well as a government.
Iain, I have to cut you off there. Sorry to do that. Thank you very much indeed. And gentlemen, thank you both very much indeed. And a very quick look at the papers tomorrow. The Scotsman, Salmon told SNP plans will damage economy. This is the line we were giving you.